Hey, welcome to the Backyard Professor Live. We have a special edition. I have with me my good and dear friend, Steve Pynakker from Mormon Book Review. Steve, what are you doing this morning?
Well, I just had a nice relaxing morning. I was thinking of going to church this morning, but I wasn't able to. I try to get to services of just about every Sunday. And my mom went to church service still today, and she said it was really enjoyable. And I just kind of mentally preparing for our little conversation today. And I really enjoy my time. As a matter of fact, it's been really cool meeting you in the flesh, of course, at the movie screening of Elder Pingree when we had packed out that movie theater. And we got to shoot basically people got to see us meeting for the first time when you taped us together. Basically we'd only talked for a few minutes. And so now we've developed into a friendship, which I think is really important. And I think it's important because friendship is so important and it's underrated. We need more of it. I think that when we live in these tumultuous times, when we live in a time where people are just going at each other's throats all the time, I really feel like us having dialogue with each other is so important. And both of us are in journeys as well. And we can have communication with each other. I watched your thing yesterday that you posted with Jonathan Neville.
Yeah.
You guys don't agree on hardly anything, really, in one sense, but you have a civil conversation. And I think that's and like I tell people, that every time I have Jonathan Neville on my program, we move the ball. We actually make progress in having these conversations where evangelicals are talking to members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and other members of churches that believe in the Book of Mormon, and they're having civil dialogue and conversations. And my channel is called the Switzerland of Mormonism, as coined by Dr. Randy Bell. And it's become that. It really has. And I'm really privileged to be in that space, that safe space for everyone, for all the voices of the restoration. That's a long intro, but I just thought I wanted to throw some respect your way, man, because I think you're doing a lot of good stuff. And what I like about you is, first of all, you wear everything on the sleeve. We know where, Gary Shirts is upset. He's gonna let you know, right? That's how you are. But you also sometimes even talked about how you went off on a rant. I was listening to the Jonathan Neville thing yesterday, like I said. You talked about how you went on the rant about that alleged racist remark that was made at BYU. Turned out not to have been the case. And you had to kind of repent, right, of doing that, because you said, yeah, I flew off the handle. I didn't have all the information and I was wrong. And I think that's so important, too, is the ability to admit when you're also wrong. I always will do that as well. And so that's just important to be like John DeLynn. I had him on my show. And he said, what we need more than anything is epistemological humility. And I think that's what we could all use.
Oh, what a great way to put it. Epistemological humility. I really like that. That has a ring. Hey, we've got Cog Arrest. Welcome, my friend. Hi, Steve and BYP. Good to see you guys doing something together. Big fan of you both. Welcome, Cog Arrest. Yeah, Steve and I have good intentions. Hopefully we're not paving the wrong road here, but we will be putting ourselves together in a lot of different conversations and discussing a lot of different topics together, because I find Steve to be a breath of fresh air and I find him intellectually capable. And I'm not trying to say that to insult anybody at all, but it's fun to be able to really dig in with someone, and Steve's one of those that I'm discovering. And it, like you said, Steve, it is so cool. It's cool that we can get together, that we become friends. And because of becoming friends, my group of friends is growing and expanding. And I do a lot of chess videos. And I've actually been able to kick off a chess video every single day this last week, and my chess patrons are really loving it. But at the end of those videos, I always say, be good, do well, have fun, make lots of friends. It's funner to have friends than enemies, etc. And they send back the idea to me. They say, we love it. We show your videos to our chess classes because we love your endings. We love the chess also, but we love your endings because it is a good reminder that we can be happy. I always tell people, smile. It makes people wonder what you're up to. I do that at work sometimes. I'll put on a big Cheshire cat grin, and one of the gals will go, what are you doing, shirts? What's going on? But we wanted to get together. Now, I just on the cuff, I know John's going to Europe for a few weeks, and so he is such an important voice. I watched your discussion with him just a couple of days ago, and then that night he actually sent me an email saying, I'm starting a new blog on this theme that we've all been kind of gone through the ringer with, on this Peter Pan, Mike Parker, kind of not very classy, not totally negative racism, but enough racist that it caught our attentions. And anyway, through this whole debacle, we believe good can come from this, and we're trying to help the situation so that good can come from this. And so I just called Jonathan, just like I did you, Steve. Thank you so much for. I called Jonathan on the fly and I said, hey, before you go, you want to get on for a minute, because the more people that see the reality of a good discussion among people who genuinely do not believe alike, and yet they're all friends, they're camaraderie. We can have barbecues together. I don't care if you're an evangelical or an atheist or a Mormon apologist. I don't care whether you believe in a literal Book of Mormon, ancient historical document, or a work of fiction. It's irrelevant what you're thinking of Joseph Smith is to me. I have my views. You certainly have your views, and Jonathan has his views, and so on and so forth. I just did a response to the church historian, Kyle McKay. He has his views also. So correct me if I'm wrong, the principle that we're seeking, and I like Jonathan's, the multiple approaches. Yes, that is a huge piece of this. But the principle we're seeking here is learning together.
Yeah. I think it's Paul. Well, come, let us reason together. And I think it's important.
I just expounded on that. Yeah. Isaiah 1:18. Come, let us reason together. Yeah.
Yes. And I think it's so important for us to do that and have conversations. And I think that when it's so fascinating to me, because President Nelson declared that we need to not do all this contention and all this conflict. And you actually took that as like, hey, I'm going to follow the prophet on this one because I agree with him. And I'm following the prophet. And interestingly enough, so is John Dehlin, because John Dehlin actually, before even President Nelson gave a speech, I actually interviewed John and posted on my channel. And John said, in 2023, I want to work to build bridges and not be so contentious. And I think one of the cool things that he's started up was he's doing that weekly roundup news, Mormon news thing weekly with Patrick Mason and Jana Reese.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what a wonderful thing. You have a faithful Mormon. You have, you have a journalist who's also a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And you have one of those prominent ex-Mormons all having conversations about the church on a weekly basis. Yeah. And I think that's like so cool that they're doing that. And that's important, that we have these civil dialogues and conversations. And then it's so funny because a couple of weeks ago, I was attacked by fairly prominent Christian apologist based out of Utah. He was calling me out, and but and this is the thing, is like he did it in an unchristian way. He never gave me a heads up. I'm not even going to say his name, but I felt like he was.
Come on, let's gossip.
Well, I'm going to wait, because he says he's going to put out another response and he's going to attack me some more.
So he's attacking you for having conversations with Mormons, and
saying that and he's taking, like, for instance, like he says, you're a progressive liberal, whatever, and I'm like, and he links to me saying something like, I think that the Christian church should be nice to people of the LGBTQ community, and that makes me all of a sudden a progressive. Being nice to gay people, being nice to people that are different than you is progressive, and I've never identified as a progressive. In his mind, progressive is a pejorative. I don't think of progressive as being a pejorative per se. It's just not my worldview. I'm more libertarian in my outlook. But this guy is attacking me, and he uses the exact same tactics that a lot of these Mormon apologists do. They're cut from the mold. I mean, they're the exact same people. And what they don't like, and I almost think a lot of them are on the spectrum, they don't like that I cannot be put in easily into a category. So they're trying to put me in a category,
Sure.
but they can't, and that frustrates them because it doesn't compute for them. And I'm like, yeah, you cannot put me in a single category, because I'm trying to be Paul and being all things to all people in one sense, right? I want all people to feel safe with me. I want all people to feel comfortable to have conversations. And when we did that movie theater thing, dude, okay, and I pointed out at the beginning, I said this is already a success before the movie even started, because we have a room full of evangelical Christians, church employees, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, conservative, progressive, atheists, polygamists.
Filled the entire theater. This was not just a 15, 20 people event.
This was a packed house.
Filled that theater. I was impressed.
And we had members of the LGBTQ community all under one roof. All felt there was a safe space to be at. And to me, that was like the epitome of my audience. That is my audience, all those groups. And it's like we can have these conversations. I can disagree with 90% of my guests, but be positive. And I loved your conversation you had with Jonathan yesterday, because it was a civil dialogue. I think the most important thing is, rather than say you should do this, you should do that, I say let's actually do it. And that's what we've been doing.
That's what we're doing. This is the idea. As we generate more discussion, as we generate discussions, and it doesn't matter what topic, scriptures. I still really enjoy the scriptures. I did a huge deep dive into the Greek and the Hebrew with the church historian in my response this morning. And yet, on the other hand, let's go study some history together or whatever. How about some science? How about some new philosophical authors that have come out that are discussing the metaphysics? That's a bad word in so many ways with people these days, but metaphysics is one of my favorite topics, even though I can't prove it philosophically. Well, I can't prove the scriptures, the Book of Mormon, is not an ancient book. And so therefore, there is a discussion that's going to be involved. I don't even know if I want to prove that. It's more of a discussion of, well, here's what I see. And by the way, did you hear yesterday that so-and-so came up with this? And in the process, now I have to change my thinking of what happened in the Book of Alma. Things like that. Grant Hardy's book, Understanding the Book of Mormon. For whatever reason, and I get it, I agree, and I respect the fact that book built people's faith in the Book of Mormon. It did not do that with me. It was one of my shelf breakers, which is just, and to this day, I'm pleasantly surprised still that I had that reaction with this book. Now, I will revisit it in time, but just because, and I'm not trying to bother Grant Hardy by saying your book helped eliminate some of my faith. It did not build it. I'm not trying to insult you. I don't want you to feel bad. It's all good, because this is my process of growth. Sometimes you have to go down before you go up, right? Yeah. And maybe I have to go down a little bit in my faith. I don't know. I haven't just tossed it. Some of these Mormons who become ex-Mormons and who lose their faith, and we all go through an angry phase, etc. Yeah, I get all that. No, I didn't get into drugs or booze or nothing, but and every now and then it'll bubble back up. But some of these guys who take their entire library and just throw it out.
They're books. You don't do that to books.
May I please say to all of my audience here and now, if you're transitioning and you have a library you want to get rid of, mail it to the Backyard Professor.
Or Mormon Book Reviews as well.
Mormon Book Reviews. Don't just chuck
Right.
it in the landfill, chuck it to me,
Yeah.
because I will review that stuff. Even if it's the faithful stuff,
Mhm.
send it my way. Now, my wife's going to kill me for saying that because my house is too small. You can see I've already got this stupid thing stuffed. But no, there is a letting go,
Mm.
and there has to be an acquiring.
Yeah.
And I mean, McKay himself said, look, there must be an opposition in all things. We're going to have faith. We're going to have some doubts, etc. Don't let either one overwhelm you.
Mhm.
I took him to task for that in a way because I felt he was privileging faith and belief, but it is evidence that will do that. That's a whole nother story.
Right.
It's all good. I'm willing to talk to whoever wants to about it. But you and I, what I'm enjoying with this friendship with you, my dear brother, is the ability to say, oh, what do you want to talk about today? Well, I'm kind of in this subject right now.
Yeah.
Does that sound interesting to you? Now, we've both been through this experience, being kind of harped at, yelled at. Sometimes it bewildered us. Sometimes it amused us, etc. It's all good. It's water under the bridge. Now, don't jump in the water and go under the bridge. Let's get on the bridge and build the bridge.
Mm.
Is kind of our approach. Is that a fair assessment of what you and I like to do and how we enjoy the camaraderie with our guests, no matter who they are, as well as with each other? I think that is a terrific way to be. I can't help it. It's more fun for me. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think also too is I think the two of us can serve a role. I think we are modeling behavior that can be very useful for people, okay, who have gone through the faith crisis, maybe lost their faith, and they're trying to put the pieces back together. And you and I had that dark nights of the soul. We had our angry at God, angry at religion, angry at people who believe, angry with all the things that was done to us, and understandably so. And then to get through that, see, we can be a light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of people who right now are in a bad place because of what they're going through. And I understand, because I was there for a very long time myself.
Yeah.
And I want to let you know that as bad as it might seem, that you can get through this. And I'll tell you, the triggers will always be there, but you're healed when you're no longer triggered by the things that triggered you. That's part of the healing process. And I want to tell you that, yeah, I know right now, maybe if you hear a hymn, you get triggered. I understand it, but you'll know you're healed when you can hear that hymn, or you can see that person appear on BYU TV that triggers you or whatever, but you no longer get triggered by that. Or in my case, I couldn't watch anything that was Christian related because I would feel triggered. Now I can handle it just fine. But there was a period of time when I couldn't. And I also know, and this is why I always tell people, so I'm a pro-atheist evangelical. And when I told Aaron Ra that, his eyes got real big. By the way, Aaron Ra is at the Satanic Convention in Boston this weekend. And so,
no kidding.
Yeah. And so I go to Aaron and I'm like, I'm a pro-atheist evangelical. And he said, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, I think that there is a therapeutic aspect to atheism, where people that have been hurt by religion in general, Christianity, that they have to almost quit believing in God for them to be able to be healed in one sense too. It can be part of their healing process. They have to cut themselves completely off of it, because even just people talking about God might trigger them. So they almost feel like they have to completely cut it off, don't believe in God. And not only that, but then also the other therapeutic value atheism can be is that when you watch Aaron Ra and you watch the Atheist Experience and all those guys, they're taking on the people that hurt you as well. They're attacking like those televangelists or those people who have been, that did bad things in Christ's name. And I'm like, they're doing the Lord's work as far as I'm concerned. But it also is the therapy is for the person who's been hurt by them. And Aaron Ra's just going in and just pummeling these malevolent actors. You're like, yeah, I don't have the platform, but he's got the platform, and I got somebody that's speaking to me and standing up for where I'm coming from. So that's why I say I'm a pro-atheist evangelical, because I can understand the value in it. But I'm not going to people and saying atheists and saying, no, I don't want you to be an atheist anymore. I found Jesus and you need to find Jesus. I'm not trying to proselytize at all. I'm just trying to explain to an evangelical or to a religious audience why atheism can be of benefit to people. And I also tell people atheism is merely a form of Protestantism taken to its logical extreme. So I always go to atheists and say, welcome to the fold, fellow Protestants, because it is a thoroughly Christian worldview in one sense.
You're gonna get slapped one of these days.
Well,
welcome to the fold, fellow Protestant.
That's right. Well, Christopher Hitchens used to say, I'm an atheist of the Protestant variety. Protestantism is what gave birth to many of the things that you were talking about earlier, all stem out of a Western Christian worldview, Judeo-Christian worldview, metaphysics and all these other things, the science and the scientific method. This is all Christian stuff that spun out of Christian civilization. So in one sense, we're having Christian conversations, even if you don't believe in God. And so atheists really are just a type of Christianity in the sense that, and don't maybe misquote me there, don't take it out of context, is that atheists recognize we live in a broken world, and they don't want to have anything to do with a God that they don't think that there's a loving God that would have had anything to do with this world. And I'm like, I understand, point taken. I was an atheist for a long time. That was my worldview too. That's a very Christian worldview because it's also recognizing the brokenness of creation.
Yeah. And okay, so in a roundabout way, I can bring us back onto this also, not to arrogate ourselves in any manner, but we in recognizing this broken world, this brokenness, broken lives, there is an anger phase and all. And yet, rather than exacerbating and enhancing and enlarging the broken, we would rather heal.
Yeah, right.
And in my own life, I went just that route too. I really did. I think, don't quote me hard and fast on this at this point, but my personal suspicion within is I'm probably of the type that I had to go the atheist route. And I know, and that wasn't the end. And I understand. I do have some patrons, some wonderful audience people who really are, they're saying, oh, come on, you gotta be atheist. It's the only logical. Come on, church, don't let me down here. Don't tell me you're not an atheist anymore. And I'm not, and so it doesn't matter because the pro-Mormons are going to be disappointed with me as well. It's not about pleasing everyone, and it's not about coming together in a total unity of thought. I don't think that's possible nor desirable at this point because truly we're all just finite. There's no way we can see the whole.
Right.
And so in the process, I'm really glad if there is a God. I'm a seeker, but I'm really grateful that if there is a God, one, he has to have a sense of humor. We humans are the most idiotic, funny things on the planet. But two, I'm really glad it's the God or goddess is patient because I can't see the whole point of view. And in this respect, and I know there's people who hate it when I do this too. I get it. It's all good. Joseph Smith got this one right when he said, and it was in Liberty Jail, all of these things are going to be for your experience and be for your good. Ultimately, even what we label and assume is the bad, which is based, of course, upon our humanness. So that's why the comics are so popular, because who wouldn't want to really seriously be Superman, right? But we're not. It's all good. So we're going to have the positive and the negative experiences. Again, I'm like you. I'm not trying to convince you Mormonism is true. I'm not trying to convince you Mormonism is false. I'm sharing where. And as we share, do you find this true too, Steve? As we share our insights based on our experiences, and everybody can be a teacher in this regard because all of us are having experiences, right? But as we share our insights and what we're learning from our insights, we grow, but that doesn't mean we're better than someone else. And so we end up screaming against them. Oh, well, you're doing this wrong. No, I went the atheist route. Now you have to. That there's no need, there's no real need or desire to argue that my experience is more true than yours because I made it through mine and you're not making it through yours. Man, you're becoming an alcoholic. You get judgmental, don't you? Oh, well, you're starting to get too much on drugs or whatever, and you shouldn't. And that's what helps cause the friction in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't there? There's kind of an irony in this, isn't there?
Well, I think that sometimes atheists can be just as fundamentalist as the very people that they can't stand.
Oh, wow.
And I think it's important that we push back against fundamentalism in all of its forms, or not all, in many of its forms, because there are some fundamentalist Mormons that I'm friends with and I love them. They're lovely people. So it's just the idea of these people that are super radical and take things to, like, it's my way or the highway. You know, the atheism in one sense becomes a religion to these people because they have, you know, their rules and who's in and who's out and what's acceptable, and they'll excommunicate you if you're not toting the party line on even other issues.
And may I sneak in a comment? I don't mean to interrupt the thought. Keep your thought, but this can also be the flip side of the coin. The fundamentalist Mormon and fundamentalist, I mean the literalist, the one who thinks I am the only one who has the right interpretation and not even Joseph Smith is correct, etc. They can become atheist. Oh. And they don't even know it because their particular extreme takes away the religious. The one that they're defending, they don't end up living that view.
Right.
And so in that regard, their extreme religion becomes a detriment to not only them, but everyone else. And that leads to atheism. Mm-hmm. Just like the atheist extreme is a religious quirk. So you have all this mix, it appears to me, and I'm open to being corrected if I'm being too naive here, but when you get to those really, really wild, long, hardcore extremes, you can't have as full of a view as if you go into the middle. And I'm going to use a chess analogy, and it's a true one. In chess, the center of the board is the most important part because you take a queen and you put a queen on the edge of the board at an extreme, it cuts her power in half. If you put her in the middle of the chessboard, she radiates 360 degrees in her influence. It's the same with the knight, the bishop, the rook. So rather than go to one extreme or the other, you want to put it in the middle and radiate your power out. Mm-hmm. That just came to me. That's a fun analogy. I don't care what you think. That's a fun analogy. Dang, I'm feeling inspired. Praise the Lord and hallelujah. Pass the mustard.
We don't have church service breakout.
I got to be careful. I'm going to start breakdancing. All that crazy crap. So.
I can take you some Pentecostal churches. You'd fit right in with the dancing there.
Even with my camouflage duds. I don't know why. Oh, the reason I put this on this morning is because I've been out raking the yard and I like to use my phone and I'm listening to podcasts and videos while I'm doing yard work. So that's why I've got this. So anyway, no, I dressed up for it actually. Hey, Caden Sedona. Uh-oh. Yeah. I don't want to be the one who breaks somebody's heart. That's the church's job. So I don't push my journey on anyone else. Very interesting. Very interesting, Caden. Thanks for sharing that. And now she says, laughing out loud, amen. Woo-hoo. All right, good. Yeah, Steve and I, again, just to recap, we got a call. We're doing a short live today, but we just wanted to get together, touch bases, share our. In a way, it's kind of Buddhist. Our goal is to have no goal, but to be loving to all, to share the to share the influence of uplifting people is much more enjoyable than to share the influence of always having to be correct and winning an argument. And
Right.
I get to show that I am superior because I won the argument.
Right.
Yes, I get into that mode. I was an apologist, you know. It's
Right.
just Jonathan, did you see that? He called me right out. I was, oh, nope, you're slipping back into the apologetic mode. I do not want to tear your view apart. I just want to understand you. So this will take some adjusting for me too, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone has to adjust. That is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know the church teaches we want certainty. And boy, was that Kyle McKay's talk the other day to the BYU Idaho students. He wants the certainty. Now, he's grounding it in Jesus Christ, so I can't quite argue with that part. There's some other issues that, if you want, you can go look at my video and see my response. It's an hour and 44 minutes. I did a deep dive on him. I went into the Hebrew and the Greek scriptures and all that. But rather than attending to the concept of certainty, which, unfortunately, one of the side effects of that is you yourself begin to judge yourself too harshly. You're always going to fall short. So then you feel guilty or inadequate or whatever. I'm not trying to speak for you, Steve, but I do believe Steve and I both say, shed that. And rather than worrying about the certainty and the perfection from this angle that we're living in right now as human beings, let's just don't worry, be happy, do good, make friends, be happy. That used to be my favorite song as a teenager, but that message resonated, man. That's why it became a bestseller, right?
Yeah. That's very true. And I think that, you know, I look at it this way. It's actually very simple, the Christian message, and that is to love your neighbor, be selfless, not selfish, care for those who are being mistreated.
There's Jesus all over again, right?
Yeah. And I think these are great principles to operate under. And, you know, I had Noah Rasheta on, you know, one of the leading Buddhist podcasters on my show. And it really shocked me having a conversation with him, because I don't really study Eastern religions that much, but I didn't realize how Buddhist, in one sense, my practices are. I, on my own, kind of integrated and didn't know what it was Buddhism, but I've kind of found some principles, universal principles that I think can work, you know, in any way that I've been able to tap into. And so I think for me, when I say this, because I think this is really important, I really think it's important for our audience to hear this kind of stuff, because I know that many of you are in a lot of pain. You're still, you know, suffering depression and all these other things. And I just want to tell you that, you know, you can get to that point where I just tell people, I just want you to end up where I'm at right now, which is I have very little stress and anxiety and depression in my life. I have a peace that surpasseth all understanding, in one sense. You know, I live in a 50-year-old mobile home in Florida with my mom. I drive a 15-year-old car. I have like 3 pairs of pants and a handful of t-shirts that I wear. I'm not very materialistic. I don't really seek after those kind of things.
But you've got your priorities right. I see hundreds of books behind you. Yeah, brother. Right there. There's the.
What I love about it, though, is that many of these books that you see behind me, this one bookshelf here is huge, and this is pretty much all books that, well, this is representative of many of the books that have been sent to me for free by authors and by publishers. So I really don't have to buy a book anymore. So I'm actually saving money. Unfortunately, I don't have time to read the books like I used to, because this has become a full-time job.
That is a trick, isn't it?
Yeah. But, you know, the requisite 10,000 hours I did as my lifetime really of engaging the restoration. And I get, you know, I don't have perfect memory, so I get facts wrong and different things like that. But generally speaking, the knowledge on the subject is pretty extensive. And it's funny when other scholars acknowledge that I'm very knowledgeable in the subject. But that goes to show, too, is that's why, like, when I can go on Mormon stories and the final episode be how Mormonism saved an evangelical's life, I think that's a beautiful thing, to be able to tell that story and go on the biggest ex-Mormon show, anti-Mormon show, and sing praise to the man in one sense.
Oh, irony will come back and bite us every time, won't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all an exploration. It really is. It's kind of an examination, a testing. We're kind of dip our toe in the water over here, and we look over there, and there's a pool of water. So, yeah, man, let me try a swan dive in that. And then there's other times where, just like this one person says, cog arrest, they like it when I get very energetic and grab a book and throw it and all that jazz, Yeah, that's fun to do. And there are times when that's appropriate. Oh, hope that didn't hurt that book. That was a good book, dang it.
Yeah.
But the idea is, the reason, correct me if I'm wrong here too, I just want to bring this out, and then we can close out with this thought. Yeah. I'll give you the last word, my dear friend. But the reason you're at a station of calm, I'll say, a place of peace, relative, of course, we understand that, the world's a messy place. We get all that, but not internally torn at this point is what I'm getting at when I say you're in a place of peace. One of the key things, and this is the hardest, and I know this is going to, I get it, you guys. I promise. I'm going to say right out loud, this sounds just corny. I get it. It sounds like when you can get to the point to where you don't keep beating yourself up. You're your own worst enemy in so many regards, and it's not necessary. It is a learning experience, but my key advice would be to get to the point to where, and just do it little chunks at a time. If you can't just all of a sudden do it, it's not a crisis. You're not in a rush. You're not in a hurry here. We've got the whole life ahead of us, right? Forgive yourself. Get to the point to where you say, you know what? I really am just not nearly as good as he is, and I'm not as good as she is. And oh my gosh, look at the skills and talent that woman has. And I'm such a nothing and a nobody burger and all that. When you get to the point to where you don't feel the need to even compare yourself to anyone else, but just within yourself, and you say, I am such a physical wuss. I used to tell myself that all the time, Steve. I really did. I've told myself I am such a spiritual nothing. I am mentally a midget, etc. That guy knows 4 languages. It's very intimidating. When you can get to the point to where you can accept yourself with all of your own problems, ironically enough, and I can say this from a little bit of experience, I still have way more of it, the problems actually kind of disappear. It's weird how that works, but they're going to get magnified if you keep expecting perfection, and if you keep expecting, well, I have to become better than them to be accepted, or to make it to heaven, I have to be more righteous, etc. When you can begin to let all that stuff go, and in a way, this is the Eastern way, the Tao, the way of the Tao, just be, it's astonishing. The peace really does begin to somewhat grow.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I tell people, because evangelicals, there's a lot of evangelicals that don't understand what I'm doing, and they're like worried, almost like, and I'm like, listen, you gotta, they live in this black and white world, right? Where if you're not with us, you're against us and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, our society is being torn apart, and we're so similar. Evangelicals and Latter-day Saints are so similar to each other. And I would just love to have them just talk to each other, because I tell people, I go to atheists, like, well, how could, and I'm like, listen, one of the arguments that atheists use against religion is because of all the conflict that we have started, all the wars and the crusades and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Here I am, an evangelical, part of the enemy camp, who've been persecuting the restoration for over 200 years, saying, I'm coming from the enemy camp with an olive branch, a peace offering, and saying, let's talk. Now, if any atheist would be critical of that, I don't get it, because we're kind of showing that people with different religious beliefs can talk to each other and can have civil conversations with each other.
Sure.
And I think that's so important that we have this. And that's the other thing too, is, and I don't believe that we're supposed to proselytize. I believe we're just there to love people and love them right where they're at.
After all, that is the great commandment. And the second is like unto it. He put the love right out there, didn't it?
And self-sacrifice and all these kind of things are so important. And we need to be more Christ-like. And even if you don't believe in God, you can still follow the teachings of Christ, the ways of Christ, and integrate them into your life.
And if that's too difficult for you to do, here's what else I've discovered too, is follow the teachings of Buddha for a while. It's all right. You don't have to follow any specific religious leader if you don't want to. I'm just saying, from my experience, whichever one you choose, or if you choose them all, which is kind of what I like to do, is do nice things to people and watch your life change. I'm serious. That is not just a goofy little, oh, here we go with the spirituality lesson of the day. No, just try it for a while. It's so much fun. I'm not kidding, man. It's cool. Do you know how many times a day I get people coming up saying, good morning, Carrie, or good afternoon. Hey, how's your day going, man? And all that. You get that kind of a reinforcement when you put it out there first. And then all of a sudden someone, and you're not doing it for this reason. I'm just saying one of the results, then all of a sudden, astonishing to me, was all of a sudden I'm being invited to dinner or to lunch. Or they all of a sudden they contact me and they say, hey, I was going to throw this thing away, this piece of furniture away, but are you in need of an extra bed or something like that? They think of you and they like you and you like them, not as a way of getting something out of someone, but just being genuine. And then all of a sudden, things really start happening that make you smile and you feel good. Do what that does. Do what makes you feel good.
And I think that, just speaking very secular, I think it's important, like you said, well, follow the Buddha or follow these people. I do think it's important on a practical member that you have an ethical ethos that you live by. Because so often people who lose faith often become nihilistic in their worldview. And that's a very dark place to be. So I'm not saying become a Buddhist, but what I am saying, there's an important utility to having an ethical ethos in your life, right? And that's so important, to have certain principles that one lives by. And there are universal principles that are universal to all religions, including the Golden Rule, that if it just as a practical purpose of integrating these ethical worldviews into your life, it will be of benefit to you as well. And so, and again, I just tell people too, is that we are hardwired to be spiritual. We are spiritual animals. We can't get around the fact that the reason why we're here is because our ancestors a long, long time ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago, believed in something bigger than themselves, believed in the importance of like even doing funeral rites. They say, Margaret Mead said, the moment we became human is when we find human remains with healed hip bones. In other words, they weren't left to die, but somebody picked up this person and carried them and was selfless as opposed to being selfish. So this
we are spirits having an in-body experience.
Yes. So I think it's important to.
Doggone it. You mentioned, I swear I had this cotton picking book, and it's one of the great books that I've read. But here's another one. You mentioned nihilism. Emmanuel Severino, The Essence of Nihilism. That's one of the books that pulled me out of that. This is one of the books that helped me recognize and maybe it is my personal desire, but there is something more. And so in the process, now there's people who say, well, I don't want to know all about nihilism. You will if you go through a faith crisis.
You'll live.
I didn't want to study a damn thing about nihilism either, but I ended up studying quite a bit about it because of my experience, and I am the better for it. And so I didn't mean to interrupt you, Steve. I apologize.
No.
But you mentioned nihilism, and that I would recommend that book. That is quite the book. All right. He shows the essence of it and why it can't be the ultimate.
Okay, well, that's fascinating, and I like challenging ideas. I like to have these kind of interesting conversations, and that's really, I think, what we're going to do, Carrie, is we're going to just sit down, and maybe it'll be just one of those things. Hey, Steve, want to hop on in half an hour and do a live thing? Okay, sure, let's talk about whatever. And I think it's important. Of course, I'm going to have you on my programs too. I'm actually taping an interview every day this week. Like I'm going to go like 7 or 8 straight days taping, whether it's for my channel or like your channel, other podcasts. But so this week won't work, but for me to have you on my program, but I'd like for us to have I'd like to do a classic Mormon book reviews. Who is the Backyard Professor? Give us your story. Give us your background. Let's talk about your faith journey, and then talk about how you kind of came out of atheism back into some type of openness to theism. Oh yeah. I'm interviewing him.
You're having Thomas Wayment on your program this week, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm interviewing him tomorrow. Yep. And
the reason I bring him up is because I'm having one of his colleagues tonight, Trevin Hatch, on, and we're going to be talking about the Jewish Jesus and the Pharisees in the New Testament, and he knows Thomas Wayment very, very well. So I want you to do me a favor tomorrow night. If you don't forget, just tell Thomas Wayment I've become good friends with Trevin Hatch. I really like him, and I am enjoying his New Testament translation from the Greek, and I would like to have him on my show also.
I'll pass that on. Yeah, I'll definitely pass that on.
Tom Wayment, I've had my questions about him through time. Trevin Hatch has helped me see a new view of Thomas Wayment, helping me recognize I was a little bit too harsh in my judgment. And now that I'm getting to know him through his materials, good man. I think you'll have a good interview with him. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I think this is the other thing. I love what you're doing. You're talking to faithful scholars. And I think that's great. I think that's great that Mormon Discussions, in the broadest sense, is having all these different people come on and talk. I think all views. And I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful to Radio Free Mormon. I mean, we're good friends, and Bill Reel and I, we did that collaboration, of course, a few weeks ago. And so I feel like I've got a good relationship with all the different podcasters from all the different camps. Everybody trusts me, which is really cool. But I think that it's been a wonderful experience to show how we're modeling how it can be done. And I think that's the important thing, is just
it can be done. And quite frankly, we'll both tell you, we're having a lot more fun and enjoyment doing it this way without question. So we'll be doing this. So
I'm loving this. Carrie, I want to thank you so much for bringing me on today. This was really awesome.
Yeah. Let's wrap it up. And thank you to the audience. It's been good to see y'all. Yeah. Thank you for your comments in the chat. We will return with much, much more in the future. So in the meantime, remember, oh my goodness. Oh. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, it's all good.
Well, have fun, and we shall return later. See you later.
Bye.